I'm Dr. Ken Davis, and
Hi,
with
I'm Kristen Donchez.
and we're Davis Advanced Health System, an integrated wellness clinic practice that focuses on treating the whole person of body, mind, and spirit. So today we want to talk about stress and that so sometimes word that's used only in what we would call a negative connotation. And again, the analogy that I use about stress or the metaphor is that stress is like a fork in the road, and we can use stress and the different elements or where stress comes from in our life to grow and evolve or allow it to affect us to break down, get sick, and have specific ailments and problems and conditions. So, Kristen, you want to add to that?
Uh, that's very much true. It can be used that, or it can occur that way, but we can also grow from stress and learn about ourselves and move forward. One of the other things is often people think about stress as only a traumatic event, somebody getting ill or, getting in a fight with somebody, something like that. But there's a whole lot of other things that our body views as stress. So pain and inflammation is a stressor to the body. When our blood sugar, if we don't eat for a long period of time and it drops down low, that's a stressor for our body. And so there's lots of things that can influence
Sure,
and cause a stress response within the body.
very true.
Mm.
Also, what people need to understand, first of all, is a little bit about the way in which we've been built and the way in which the design or whatever intelligence created this magnificent body. That since, again, the time of the caveman or Neanderthal was built primarily as a stress response machine. So when the saber-toothed tiger was running after him, he primarily did two things. He fought that tiger and killed it and brought the food home to his family, or he took off and ran. And so it's all about the stress response or the fight or flight response is something that our body does to prepare us to do one of two things: run or defend ourselves and fight. But the question is, these responses that all of us, throughout the course of our life, from an infant to an adult, is about the ability to, we have a stressor. The question is, can our nervous systems respond appropriately to the stress? And can we adapt to it? And can we recover from it? And that's really the name of the game. So also, most of us, just to understand, there are two little tiny small glands that sit on the top of our kidneys, and those are your adrenal glands. But although they're small, they're powerful and secrete uh, adrenal hormones that affect so many functions in the body. Why don't you go through that a little bit, Kristen?
Okay. Well, so first off, we've got the master gland in our brain, which is regulating everything, and that's the hypothalamus and pituitary. They work kind of together. But the hypothalamus is what checks out and sees in our blood what's going on biochemistry wise. It's what checks out in the world and sees when there's danger. And it's what communicates the pituitary and then talks to the adrenal glands and says, okay, we're in a fight or flight issue, and sets off the alarms. So it's that master gland that's regulating the adrenals. And that's an important thing because it doesn't just affect the adrenals, it affects the other endocrine organs in the body too, which we're kind of going to link everything together in a moment. So when that
So
stressors.
really just to break it
Mhm.
down. It's really just to tell the audience it's like a thermostat. You
Yeah.
know, a thermostat that regulates the environment of what's happening outside of our body and then adjusts itself, like walking into a room when it's too hot or too cold and whatever, and adjusts the
Yeah,
internal.
very good. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Uh,
So when that adrenal response, danger, danger, goes off, then a whole bunch of things occur to help you get ready for that fight or flight, right? So our blood pressure increases, our heart rate increases, get the blood and the oxygen, our breathing changes, get all that stuff to our body or to our muscles so we can run. Our blood sugar increases, all those kinds of things happen. And then also those longer term projects kind of get put on hold. So like digestion, our immune system kind of gets long term put on hold. Recycling of the cells that normally occurs, all those long-term processes are kind of like dampened down.
Yeah, also to remember it's the adrenal response that happens in that moment when you see, in the movies or you hear on the news, a woman sees her baby run across the street and a car is coming or whatever, and she jumps over two cars, picks the child up, and boom, and uses the superhuman strength to save the baby. And
Yeah.
so
So
that
not a total bad thing, right? I mean, it's very beneficial. The problem is, again, as you said, if you don't adapt to that response, don't come down around 30 minutes or
exactly
less, returning to normal, then one of the things that really we just see so much of now is that everybody's like set point kind of gets turned up. So what was normal in terms of cortisol in the body or having a stress reaction should only happen once once a day, twice a day, and then like you're got calm and you return to normal and you live in normal and the brain knows what normal is. But when it keeps happening and happening and happening and you don't have that time to recover, everybody's nervous system is just heightened. It's almost like they're on fire and so easily triggered
right. That's
for the
the
next response.
important. It's all about the question of adaptation and recovery. Which again, as Kristen mentioned, the adrenal response should recover really within a 20 to 30-minute period of time. Also, I do want to mention someone that I've read a lot about, and I would certainly recommend it, even though is Hans Selye. Hans Selye was the one who talked about and wrote about the adrenal response in being in three primary phases of reaction. And of course, as Kristen was mentioning, is the alarm. So the first response of the adrenals is alarm. Oh, there's a stressor. And what the body initially does is the alarm from the adrenals, it secretes two primary hormones that most people have heard of, which is epinephrine and norepinephrine. And those are your catecholamines.
Adrenaline.
And adrenaline. So what happens is, again, so boom, there's a response to stress, fight or flight, and you know what happens? Alarm, and those hormones are pumped and secrete. Actually, the adrenal glands get bigger. They grow, they get enlarged to meet the demands of stress, and those hormones are secreted. And again, as we've been saying, that after the event is over, the adrenal should recover within a given period of time, and we're supposed to move on with life. But unfortunately, what happens, or maybe fortunately in a certain way, the stressor continues and we don't recover, and now the next stress of life occurs. So now the adrenals are reacting and attempting to create again that alarm reaction. But if the stressors continue without full recovery, they're going to get a little tired. So then we go into phase two, reaction of the adrenal system, and they're getting fatigued. And now that's going to begin to affect other hormones of our body, which are, I would assume that we've all heard of DHEA and other particular hormones that are tied to the adrenal glands. Again, if the adrenal response is occurring and there still is not full recovery, then we can move into a phase 3 reaction of the adrenals, and now they're exhausted. And you're exhausted, and you're tired, and all of a sudden you're wondering why you have no more libido, or your sex hormones are now being affected, and you can't get up in the morning, even though your mind says and brain says, I want to get up, but you don't feel like it. And you say that, I need about a year to rest and relax, and maybe I can recover. And also the people that, so many of us can't wait to go on vacation, right, Kristen? And then finally we plan the trip, we go on vacation, and what do we usually do the first few days? A lot of people actually get sick, and the other people, they're exhausted. And it takes them 2 days just to begin to enjoy their vacation, and then they go home and they wonder if they were ever on a vacation.
One of
So,
the, I'm
yeah,
sorry, Doc, to interrupt you, but one of the other things that we're seeing a lot more frequently now too is because of we spoke of the Dutch testing before, it's given us a little bit more insight because it lets us see like the cortisol, how much you actually make, and then how much you break down. And one of the things we're really seeing a lot of is that the body is kind of like protecting the cells from having high levels of cortisol. So it's not even that the adrenal glands aren't making the cortisol, they're still making plenty of it. It's just that it's not getting into the cells because the cells are like, too much cortisol is dangerous too. So it kind of, those adrenal glands are still working really hard. It's just, it's not a safe environment to have that much cortisol in your bloodstream around the cells for the cells. So the body's compensating in other ways to protect the cells.
like the police force is out there says, I'm not letting you in.
Yeah.
Oh, we got plenty of troops out here, but we're not letting you in because there's already too much of you in here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that we also wanted to talk about was how the cortisol affects the other systems. We kind of like really quickly just spoke about, your immune system, and then it brings that down. But one of the things that what we see a lot of is the like the sex hormones being dysregulated. And we always, you kind of think of it like the symptoms, right? And when you could have low libido, or you could have problems gaining muscle, or fatigue, or all those things that testosterone is great for. We're speaking of men right now. But so then we think, okay, so what's the problem? The problem the cause would be low testosterone, right? Well, that's also not really the cause. There's something that's causing the low testosterone. And so when we talk about like root cause and looking for testing and not guessing, we want to take it more than there's just low testosterone going on. That's not the problem. That's also a symptom. What's the true cause of that? And so when we talk about stress, we're talking about because it's a lot of lifestyle factors fall into that, right? From as simple as not sleeping, which is, if you're a busy worker, or you have like young kids, or you're an entrepreneur, like you're not getting 8 hours of sleep. You're working through them a lot. And so that's like just one lifestyle factor that can affect it. That can affect those adrenal glands. Your blood sugar's up and down, that affects stress. If you have pain and inflammation, that affects the stress response and the adrenal hormones, which then impact the testosterone. So we actually put it as the title, like cortisol castrates, and it truly does, because there's that master gland that regulates the adrenal glands, also regulates the testes. And if cortisol's up, it's saying, oh, this is not a safe environment. One, no reason to procreate now because it's not safe and we don't have time for it. So the signals to the brain, to the testes, get turned down.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Cortisol castrates.
it does.
That's pretty heavy duty.
It is, but it's also true.
It is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
You know, people, we don't take enough time to recover. We're go, 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 go. We live in that particular lifestyle. And, And that's why it also becomes it's an individual type of scenario that we have to add into our life,
Mhm.
be able to I always tell our patients that, if you really look at a dog, an animal when it doesn't feel well or it gets tired, what does it do? It lies down in the corner and rests and sleeps. Not us. It's like we'll
That's
keep
true.
going no matter what. It's hi ho, it's off to work I go. And so, the mind, of course, is very powerful, and the mind will keep going even at cost. But, then all of a sudden we wonder why we're developing body fat and belly fat, and we're developing cellulite, and we're holding water in our body, and all of these things. And now, what do I do about it? These uh, physiological challenges and breakdown that happen do not happen. Yes, a major stress crisis acutely can certainly create, but in general, this is a cumulative process,
Mhm.
course of our life. And a lot of it does occur kind of pre-puberty and through puberty, through also the stresses that we have, peer pressure, having to achieve. It was a lot different, in a certain way, decades ago, but the climate has changed in society and all that's been going on. But so it does become an individual journey and challenge that we all have to take responsibility for to be able to regulate lifestyle, rest, proper diet, sleep. Unfortunately, have to deal with environmental issues.
Mhm.
And all of this is cumulative, but no one's going to do it for you either. You have to do it yourself. You have to take the information that's out there, and there's a lot of great information uh, out there to learn. Also, uh, Christian, you may want to follow up on this or talk a little bit about it. There's a myth that menopause primarily is just women, and that's not the truth because men, right?
Mhm.
I want to talk about that a little bit. Go through menopause as well as
There
women.
is. That's true. I mean, there's a hormonal shift that occurs, and while you guys can still father children, it's just a lessening of the hormones. Um, and again, a lot of that has to do with lifestyle too. It's just such a huge factor. And with I'm not against by any means using bioidentical hormones to supplement. You just, especially with both, you have to be very careful. But with men, you need to be careful because it will, if you supplement with testosterone that's not from your body, the brain sees the testosterone there and will and can permanently stop your production of testosterone. So there can be issues with fertility if it's younger men that are doing this unsupervised. Um, but definitely, like, there's benefits to having the hormones at their normal levels. And the thing with men is that there's been a decrease of over the last 50 years, a 50% drop in testosterone levels. Not because men are aging. If you take a 50-year-old now and a 50-year-old 50 years ago, there's a huge difference in their testosterone level, and it's significantly lower now.
Good point.
Yeah.
Also, too, we've talked about this before, but I want to, and Christian, you're kind of mentioning it now. Remember that as a woman, especially, is getting closer to menopause. Said this for years and years. And there's less output of estrogen from the ovaries. The adrenal, who's the buddy to the ovary, says, "You know what, ovaries? I'm gonna take over and help you out.
Mhm.
We see you've done a good job all these years of your life. You're secreting less estrogen. So we're going to take over, and the adrenals are going to support the ovaries. But what happens is that the adrenal says, buddy, I really want to help you, but I don't have any life or juice left in me. So in the process of less ovarian output, the adrenals are already fatigued and they can't do the job. So what do we begin to see that happens in a female? Hot flashes, hormonal imbalance, libido loss, vaginal dryness,
Brain fog, mood problem. I mean, like but I know there's the classic, 5 or 10. There's actually over 50 symptoms that are related to going through perimenopause. And it's not a joke. I think too, the other major thing in that respect is that again, it's the hypothalamus and this master gland up here. It's kind of like the ovaries are going into retirement, but the boss wasn't told about it. So the boss isn't looking for replacements, and the boss is giving those ovaries more work. And then you're like up and down and up and down. And it's just, and again, because life has changed so dramatically that the adrenal glands, they're not, if they're called in, they're not even capable of doing it.
Right.
It the good news is that this is like a lot more known now. It certainly isn't if you're in menopause or in perimenopause and having horrible symptoms. There certainly are a lot you can do, and just again, it's taking the step back, and like lifestyle is just huge. All those lifestyle things that we don't think about when we're younger, they kind of catch up with you. And it's a huge, but you can make changes, and certainly that can assist. And then there's great herbals that help support the endocrine glands, and that's like really beneficial. And then even in perimenopause, some bioidentical low dose hormones have been really helpful too, but everybody's different.
That's a good point. So I want to say one other thing before we close. Being involved in the anti-aging channel and involved with muscle and fitness as we are, the audience may not know that I am a competitive bodybuilder and I am an IFBB pro. I'm 71 years old. And one of the things Krista and I, we've talked about in several of our lectures is, again, we mentioned it here, is called the Dutch test. And also our motto, again, as we said earlier, is test, don't guess. And a lot of individuals, male and female, that are training and competing, although it's not isolated to that, do not necessarily evaluate appropriately their hormonal levels prior to training, during training, and in their competition prep component. And you need to know this because you need to know and test appropriately where your hormonal levels are, especially your insulin levels, your adrenal hormones, your pathways of the way in which the body is breaking down the pathways of estrogen in your metabolites. And the Dutch test or whatever, or a comprehensive hormonal panel is essential for your pre-prep, for your training, and through the process of preparation to compete. So we would highly encourage you to look at that. We are there, of course, in our clinic. We are an integrated holistic wellness practice. I'm in practice almost 50 years, and it's something that we're very big on. So I certainly would encourage all of you that are listening to this to take that into consideration. And with all the effort that you're putting into your gym, your training, your diet, your prep, and whatever, to be able to also add to these other components that are essential for a peak and optimal, physical and biochemical performance. Anything else, Kristen, you want to say in closing?
No, I guess if we're talking about men again, just the ratio of estrogen is important too. You guys do need it. And I know with a lot of the aromatase and a lot of the supplements, if guys are, working naturally to increase the testosterone, oftentimes they're taking something that, like a DIM product or other things like that, that decreases estrogen. And if you have too low a level of estrogen, that's not good either. For you guys, it will, it plays a role in the muscles building capabilities, but also cardiovascularly, libido wise, like you need estrogen. So again, it's important to test it and know where you're at, because you even, we just say, oh, you're just taking some supplements or some herbs, there can have profound effects. It truly can. And if you're not in that Goldilocks ratio or balance point, then your workouts aren't going to have the effect that you want them to have.
So you can reach us. We are available. We're Davis Advanced Health System. Info at davisahs.com.
Is the email.
Say that
That's
again.
the email.
The email.
And you just davisahs.com is the website.
The website, and you can reach out to us. Okay, so I'm good to go, and thanks for your attention. We really love this medium and channel to give you information, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions or comments or any topics that you'd like to hear. So I'm going to sign off. I'm Dr. Ken Davis.
Kristen Donchez.
And we'll talk to you real soon.
All right.